Well, greetings and good evening. It's Monday. I had to think about that one. And I'm outside the rush hour door. I've moved from my favourite seat into a slightly less breezy place, but the sun is out. Mr. Blue Sky is shining on us, and the sun will be setting soon. It's been a busy few days. Missed a few podcasts. I record them, but I don't always publish them. But that's me sometimes. It was meant to be, it's meant to be. But yeah, it's been a really good time with sheep shearing and alpaca shearing. A great help with Claire and Cara and Casey and Dexter and Mark and Ellie and of course our Kirsty and Lorna and Dan. So many lovely people part of this project who give the boost to me as well as the project. Because I think sometimes people forget that behind every animal there's a kind person. Well, hopefully there is. Especially down here, there's one very kind person who does all we can with the animals. And a lot of people help me to do that. I do worry about them, and those in the know will know that we're talking about an animal that should be having a baby very soon. I've been talking about this since my daughter's birthday on the 9th of May, and here we are. I don't know, is it 5th of July, 6th of July? I'm trying to work out now. 5th, 6th, maybe the 7th of July. Anyway, it's a long time. And you don't really rest because you're on tenterhooks. I know it'd be okay. My dad said, you can only worry about the things you have control of. And there's never a problem, there's always a solution. It's right. If something happens, I will deal with it. As we found out with the emu the other day, who had chicks, I knew a solution, and with Claire's help, we got it sorted. There's no rule book or guide for most things in life, and it's been instinctive and spontaneous, and I'm very spontaneous sometimes. So it's got me to think about donkeys. Why on earth have I got donkeys? Now, if my dad was here, he would say, nah, they ain't farming, boy, you got donkeys. What are they for? They're not working donkeys. My mum would be chuffed a bit if she was around. She was like, loved it. She was either the best thing ever. But my dad would never have a donkey on the farm. And he was very limited to what animals he would have on the farm because he was a true dairy farm, producing milk. And eventually potatoes. So, yeah, it was interesting. And I must admit, I was never really fascinated with donkeys. I think in some ways I was a little bit, upset going down a place nearby called Weston-super-Mare, which had a lovely long beach. The tide seemed to be always out. And they always had these donkeys. And these donkeys were all done up. They had a name on their heads as if that was important. And they were walked backwards and forwards with children on the backs. And I understand that the donkeys had a purpose. Sometimes you worry about them, but they're used to the heat. But I didn't think, is that what you would want to do? Walk backwards and forwards? They need stimulation, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do get more out of it than we can imagine. And I think in general people look after them, but I do know cases where people had donkeys for rides. And when they got to a certain age, they were sort of got rid of. They were not cared for. It was like, I've got to get a younger one in. Oh, sorry, the wind's picking up a little bit now. It's a bit breezy here outside the rush hour door. So yeah, I had a sort of mixed feeling about donkeys. And you hear those stories and see abroad where these donkeys are used to carry tourists up and down steps. And I think that's wrong. I can understand in some countries they're used for their ability to pull carts. But they need respect and they need to be looked after. The hooves need regular trimming, and their diet has to be very careful. They can quite easily overheat and get laminitis. So they like the dry conditions, but I don't think they should be forced to do things beyond what would be expected of a donkey or a human, to be honest. Would we walk up and down a beach all day long pulling someone? for a little bit of hay. But my donkey's interest was never really there. I can understand why people like them, because they look super cute, and you hear so many good stories about how they bond with people, and they're very sensitive. They're intelligent animals. Most animals are pretty intelligent. Donkeys are certainly up there. So I didn't have much to do with donkeys. I remember going to St. Peter's School, and they had a donkey derby where the children would sit on a horse and it would be trot along and have little races. I guess that was okay. But I know people keep donkeys and horses. They look after them, and there's strong bonds there. But yes, for me, it never really worked. Then we had a young lad who came down here. It was quite a handful. He was quite young, but he had lots of qualities about him. It wasn't his fault. He struggled at school and had very anger issues, shall we say. But we bonded quite well together, and the mother appreciated what I did. He couldn't wait to be down here, and yeah. And then one day she said, "Oh, I've heard there's 2 donkeys need rehoming," and she was a sort of lady that was a little bit, not say forceful, but there's no good saying no. So I thought, shall I have them? And they turned up, 2 donkeys, and they were just before Christmas. Was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago? It could be 7. Or was it 8? Anyway, one day I will look up these dates, because the good thing about my photographs I take, they got dates on them, so I can actually work a timeline out. I always wanted to create a timeline of how animals came here and their story. But 2 donkeys turned, one a white one called Eli and a brown one called Coco. They came with those names, I think. Yeah, they did. They came with a passport. And one was quite old, 14 maybe, and the other one's a bit younger. Coco was a younger one. And Coco was a female. Yeah, they were a bit special. And they said, oh, you put them on a halter, then you can walk them around. The children walk them. They have been used for riding, but again, like I said, I didn't really want children to come down here just to ride donkeys. We're not a place here for a petting zoo, shall we say. So we got them the halter, we walked them up to a pen, we created a pen, we created a lovely shelter out of pallets, which was a bit special at the time. The happy memories there. And they had a little paddock by the entrance of our farm. And I soon fell in love with them. You cannot fall in love with donkeys. The way they look at you, the way they interact with you. So they became quite a firm favourite. And the 2 donkeys were very different. Coco was quite loud and always braying. And it was, after a while, I managed to teach Coco to bray on demand. Now, this sounds very bad, but it's okay. I'm not having a fit. But Coco, I would go, and Coco would then bray back to me. And we would get a carrot or a treat. Eli never really brayed much. Only a couple of times I remember him braying. He was a quiet one. And I found out later on, having 2 animals together is not always good, because quite often one would be more dominant over the other one. So one will get bullied. And I think Eli was bullied by Coco. Coco was the one who was always there first for the food and always biting his neck. But he tolerated, he put up with it. He's sort of like, okay, you can do that. But there was a big bond between them. And I think I can hear donkeys in the background. That's Edward calling. They're going to come back in a moment. Oreo, the dog, gets excited and started barking there. So Coco and Eli became a big part of the project, and a firm favourite for our visitors and for the children, giving them a brush down. And bit by bit, I sort of thought, well, if I got to put a halter on and walk them into the barn, then walking back out again. I don't really have time or see the point in this, so I taught them very quickly to come to my voice. First of all, it was with treats, but then, using the different tones of my voice, they soon learned that when it's time to come in. And if the children weren't around, then, I'll just call them in. And we had quite a few adventures with Coco and Eli, and lots of lovely videos and memories of them, around Christmas time with, in the snow. And yeah, they were became a very big firm favourite for myself and for the team here. I said they're super intelligent. And they used to watch. Now, Eli in particular was very good at washing gates. He would watch you open the gate, and he would then try to undo that gate. You think that would be possible, but trust me, he does. He did. He still did it. The other night, anybody who follows me with a patron will probably see a video where last Friday night, I was just going to the house 9:30. I've got a video alarm, shall we say, on the gate, and the alarm went off. I just thought it was someone turning up late and just going to disappear. And the gate I assume, was locked. And I went to check out the back to see if there was any more baby emus around. And I looked at my phone, and there was George, if you come to another chat, my donkey, there. And I thought, oh my goodness. I ran up the track. All the donkeys were out. So I left our gate open, and I ran to the top of our track to stop them because they'd gone into our neighbour's garden and field. And I just had this horrible feeling that we were going to get on the road, and we've had that happen before. We'll tell you about it in a moment. But I thought I had to secure. So as I said, I ran so fast. I never ran so fast without toast. I never had no toast with me. But anyway, I got them back in. Our next door neighbour, Perry, I called him and he helped. And I did like I said, they could have stayed out there for a long time. They could have outran me because it's a big field, 8 acres. And I couldn't have chased them in. So I called them in with a very firm voice to let them know that I was not happy. And they came in. And thankfully Perry was there. And then your mind goes in overdrive thinking, what happens if that happened when I was in bed and I wasn't around? They could have been all over the place. But that didn't happen. So I can't worry about something that's not happened, even though your mind does. So we got them all back in and we fixed that out as well. But going back, we had Coco and Eli, and they got out a few times. We had in a pen round the back. And I remember one Saturday night, because being a party animal, I would go up to our local supermarket about 9 o'clock at night or 9:30 and pick up a load of food from a place called Lidl. And this was a weekly time. So I went up there to get all this treats for the animals. And, hang on a minute. I've got my geese want to go in. Let's get the geese in. Oh, there I am, I'm back. Did you miss me? It's strange, isn't it? You put a pause button on. And you just pause time, do we? I always thought one day it would be nice to have that built into your life so you could pause, have a rest, then carry on. Or the nice bits, something that you really enjoyed, is rewind it and do it again and again. And obviously the bits you don't like, you can fast forward. But anyway, we're back there. So going and get some feed from Lidl's. And I get a phone call. Said, oh, your donkeys are out and they're in town. And I thought, no way. They can't be. We're having a joke. So I come back thinking this is some of my friends just playing it was a text message. And I came back and looked round the back and I thought, oh my goodness. The gate's open. We had some volunteers in, and it was my own fault. If you don't double tie the gate with rope, Eli will untie it with a little bow, pull it out. He got out through one gate, then another gate, went into our neighbours, and he'd gone up this very busy road. It's a dual carriageway up a place called Cane Hill. So he walked a mile and a half into town, and there was sort of panic stations thinking. I had a friend of mine, Paul Hams, who I called, and I get another call, and my friend, who lives not too far from away, got Coco and Eli and put them into his garden. They were off to the spar shop. I'm sure we've got my friend Derek in there. He does Derek deals. I think they were after carrots or bananas. I think in the early days we didn't give them many bananas. It was mainly carrots. But anyway, so Coco and Eli there, we put the halters on, so there's a reason why you have them halter trained. And we had to walk them down Cane Hill. It was a mile and a half downhill in the dark. The walk of shame, possibly. They were seeming quite chuffed. I was quite, I don't know, mixed emotions. I was happy that we got them, pleased that they didn't cause an accident or injure themselves. And we had the police escort, which was nice, going down the hill. And we got to the track, at top of our track, and the policeman said, "I'm off." He didn't want to stop and do paperwork. So we got Coco and Eli back in, and we ended up double locking gates and learnt a lesson. And it went viral on the internet, and we made the news as well. As always, I had some pictures and videos of it all, not as much as normal, but it was one of those things where, oh my goodness, it could have been something worse. So Coco and Eli became real firm favourites with the project, and not a day would go by without me going in and giving Coco, calling Coco, give him some carrots and listen to two very excited donkeys. And I used to take him down the field. If I was working down the field, they would come down with me like dogs, really. And you see them galloping along, so happy. They had a good life, because the lady who looked after them, she was an elderly lady and gave them up because of her age. But they were well looked after, even though obviously they were used for riding. But it wasn't they weren't mistreated or forced to do things they weren't, and you could tell it in their nature. But Coco was very much dominant over Eli. And we had lots of adventures with myself and Caroline and Cara, and it was just magical. But with a lot of things in life, that nothing lasts forever. There's always something that throws a spanner in the works, and that came on a Saturday night, a Sunday morning, when we heard our poor Coco having a heart attack, a sudden death. I'm gonna stop here now and carry on the story, because there's a lot more to tell you about it. And it was very tragic losing Coco, not only for us but for Eli. And Eli's heart was broken. He brayed and he brayed. The only saving grace, I should say, that he was very bonded with our goats and sheep, so he had company. But for a few nights, and after losing Coco, I was sitting there with him, just to let him know that there's someone for him. But I will tell that end of that story and the beginning of a new adventures with our donkeys in my next little podcast. I think I better go and just check to see if you know who is having a baby foal. That'd be quite something, especially if it's tomorrow, because I've got a good friend of mine in Philadelphia, Heather, who's got a birthday coming up. Anyway, from me to you,